Our story genre is romance. We decided to do so since we believe this topic gave us the creative flexibility to make the visuals as well as coming up with a creative story. Conventions can be described as an established technique, practice, or device. Therefore, we had to first know about these before starting to work on our project. I analyzed 3 romance movies and made notes on how the codes and conventions worked together. Conventionally, the first thing that is shown in a romance movie is the introduction of the 2 main characters. However, the 2 don't meet straight away, at least not after 2 minutes of the film. So we had to make sure that they didn't meet. This made it seem as if it really was a movie intro and there would be more story to tell. For our first take, we decided to use a split screen. This is a feature that is commonly used in romance to show both characters' states even if they are apart. For us, they would be shown through a split screen, where they would wake up at the same time, meaning that their lives are already connected in a way, similar to this Fast and Furious scene. We wanted to portray our characters as being quite normal and mundane. This is something common in romantic films that don't really have any other hybrid genre. Something that we did challenge on our project was the surrealist idea of soulmates. Everybody in the world was born with a tattoo on their wrist that said the date in which they would meet their soulmate. Jack and Mia followed the same rule. This is something that normal romance movies obviously don't portray. The dialogue would be linear. Each character would say something that would be followed by the other one and create a whole meaning through both of them speaking. For an extra addition, sometimes the characters would step over each other to emphasize their connection as well as the contrast between their opinions. Our characters were made to represent 2 different social groups in between the youth. However, both of them kind of relate into the same idea of what a teen would be like. Jack was constructed to be a young adult, going through the typical problems that this group of people face. Identity crisis, money struggles, detachment from their family. However, in one of our marketing campaigns, which I will talk about in the next question, featuring his fictional Instagram account, we can contemplate that he lives a life accompanied by his friends, doing activities that our target audience would relate to. Eating at a fast food restaurant, hanging out in a friend's house, taking vintage looking pictures. Jack represents the struggles of this age. And he is intended to act as a character in which people that are going through the same thing could relate to and therefore engage with. Mia, on the other hand, is represented as the face all of us teens show to their own audiences. She has money, enjoys the superficial and material things in life, and travels all around the world in the best hotels and fashion weeks she can. These attributes, however, do not make her a bad person or a bad role model, but she is made so that our audiences can understand that although she does all of that stereotypical stuff, she is also a very special human being. If she's judged for her outside at first, our audiences would later realize that they have made a mistake, and that Mia, as well as everybody on Earth, is unique. The romance genre is mostly directed towards people from 13 to 18 years old. This is mostly because the love that is represented in these films is very youthful and strong. Therefore, we focused on creating a piece that would center and target that type of audience. Social media is one of the most transited places by the youth, so therefore, we figured out that a good marketing strategy would be to promote our film through Instagram. We created an Instagram account for the 2 characters of our film and made it seem the most realistic that we could. Our inspiration came from jobs other teen romance movies had made to promote their films, such as After or Scam. For our posters, we got the structure based off of a similar one of a romance film called Serena. The title font we chose was a bubbly cursive in white. This represented the pureness of youth and the joy and fun that comes with it. The crew names at the bottom are much more simple. This created a contrast between the other main title. This way, the attention wouldn't mainly be on these smaller titles. We did an individual poster as well as a couple one. The individual pieces served to give information about the characters. Mia was behind a blooming tree. This meant youth, development, and beauty. Her expression showed the poise of her character and how she's generally a very happy person. Meanwhile, Jack's poster showed him smoking a cigarette, with his face looking totally away from the camera. This showed his typical indifference and of lonely wolf type of personality. The fact that the background is mainly taken up by the sky tells us that Jack felt empty and had a lot to learn and evolve. The couple picture shows both characters looking at each other, with their legs intertwined together to symbolize the connection between each other. I have to admit that although I've always been interested in cinematography, I had never really tried to do anything by myself, or at least not in the proper way. In this project, I learned to successfully work in a group and use my creativity to the fullest. We had all started with zero idea of what we wanted to do for our project, so we had dabbled in the idea of maybe doing some action or crime. Our first idea had involved filming in a very public space, taking the characters around the city, like cafes and buses, etc. And we had to make it seem like it was in a dream state, so therefore we figured out that we had to take lighting into account, very importantly. Once we had finally come up with a definite idea, we got straight into creating our individual storyboards, from which we would take bits and pieces and make a group one. Mine wasn't very viable since we had to move through too many places, and it ended up in a note which could make the film intro be confused with a short film. We had initially wanted the world that our characters live in to have no color until they met their soulmates, but we soon figured out that that was a really bad idea. Color resulted being one of the most important assets on the film. We practiced color grading and played with the lighting to create a slightly different visual for each character. We would edit Mia's scenes to have a lighter lighting. Meanwhile, Jack would have a duller use of color and light. This was to represent their mind state. I learned to edit videos by working on the progress vlog that showed all of the steps we took and thought process in chronological order that took us to the end of the creation. I also worked with sound edition and adding voiceovers, something that I hadn't done previously. Lastly, my research for non-copyrighted music in SoundCloud proved that my production skills were getting sharper. I hadn't been so perfectionist and self-analytical at the start of this journey, and I believe it was quite noticeable when looking back. At the start, we didn't even know what camera we were going to use, and as for software, we only were relying on iMovie and a free trial in Final Cut Pro. With Final Cut Pro, we did do color grading as well as using PowerDY's lavalier microphone. The camera we used was an Osmo Plus by DJI. However, we realized that if we wanted to get a higher mark, after the feedback, our teacher told us that we really had to work on the voiceover especially. So in the second take, we used a Rode Podcaster paired with a pop screen to keep the background noise to a minimum. We also used Adobe Audition. For the third take, however, we were facing quite a big problem, and it was that after we got the feedback, we went on to quarantine. So if we had to improve dialogue, which was something that our teacher told us to do, we had to do voiceovers. And the podcaster and everything else was resourced by our school. So we had to use our phones to film the voiceover. We did try searching for other apps of sound edition that we could use to kind of correct this problem with the phone. However, we did try to use Audacity, but our sound files didn't really fit the correct format for the app, so we couldn't use that either. We had to rely totally on iMovie.